So it's been
Powered by
over a decade
Riverside
plus since
FM.
we got Brad Pitt's World War Z, which is it's kind of crazy it's been that long. I mean, this film came out like in 2013, 2014. I mean, either way, it's been a minute and the talks of a sequel have been going on since the first one came out. I mean, there were talks like a few years after the film came out. Like it's been like pretty much like a start and stop deal with World War Z 2. It's going to happen, it's not going to happen. It also didn't help that Brad Pitt and the director of the first film, they did not get along too well. So that also was to something to factor in. And then also Brad Pitt, I mean, he's one of the biggest stars in Hollywood, even back in 2013. So he's had a pretty packed schedule. So like try to get him locked in for World War Z 2, probably pretty difficult. But it seems like there might actually be a World War Z 2 finally after a decade plus. But it's funny because it's been so long since the first one. I mean, they really don't have any option but to make an entirely different film. Like, I don't know how you could even make the first one like a sequel to the first one. I mean, I guess you could, but at this point, I think you'd just be better off just completely resetting, like doing something completely new. And I think really, if they're really going to make a World War Z follow up, not even a follow up, but like a World War Z film, first of all, I don't think it should be a film. I think this was the problem with the first film is that they turned a pretty interesting concept of what the novel was. Because when I first watched this film, I didn't know that it was actually based on a novel, but there's actually a novel that this film is adapted from. Well, adapted is a very loose, kind term to say. This is just World War Z in name only. To where even the author of the book said like, yeah, this film has like nothing any way resembling my source material. So like, it's World War Z only in name only. But the source material that it's adapted from actually has some interesting concepts because like the novel is like an anthology of like different survivors and like kind of like exploring like different aspects of like people's perspectives of the apocalypse, like the political aspect, like how society has adapted in a post zombie apocalyptic world. There's a lot of interesting things that the book touches on, and they turn, which is I mean kind of common in Hollywood. They turn a pretty interesting, pretty like very complex source material into just a generic action film with an A-list star, and that was it. I mean, the film did well. Like it grossed like $540 million at the box office. In fact, I think to this day, it's still the most high. It's the highest grossing zombie film, I think. So it made almost $500 million. So I mean, clearly it did something right to where like it made a lot of money. I mean, also having Brad Pitt and zombies. I mean, also like I think also it's important to remember that this film came out like I would say in the middle of the zombie, like the peak zombie era, like the late 2000s, the early 2010s, really until I'd say about 2018ish. Like 2018, 2017ish is when the zombie era kind of died down. Like when the first film came out, that was like, when The Last of Us came out about that time, Telltale's Walking Dead came out about that time, the Walking Dead show had come out at that time. Like zombies was the thing at that time. Like really even before like cinematic franchises, before blockbuster interconnected universes and cameos and the MCU was like at its, peak. The zombies were like the big thing. So like it also got helped out. Like it came out at the perfect time. Like it came out in a perfect era of zombie craze. Like people were wanting zombie content, especially zombie apocalyptic content. But I don't think that that's been lost. Like I mean, 28 years later came out a few months ago, and people love that film. And I mean, like zombies is still popular. It's not like the zombie apocalyptic genre has just died. Like unlike a genre like the young adult novel, which has just been fucking dead and buried and probably will never come back again. Zombies is one of those genres that just seems timeless. It's like vampires, werewolves. It seems like the three genre or the three like center genres like werewolves, zombies, and vampires. those are just timeless. And also, like, there's so you can do endless different types of stories and different types of narratives of all of them. So, like, you're not really contained to having to tell a certain story of like zombies or vampires or werewolves. Like, those are the big three where like they're just like timeless. I mean, Dracula to this day is still popular, still gets adapted. Werewolves still popular. I mean, Sinners just came out this year, a zombie film. You know, Nosferatu came out, a zombie. I mean, a vampire film. So like the vampire, zombie, werewolf genres, they are just kind of a perfect never. I mean, I wouldn't say they're like a guarantee to succeed, but it's pretty hard for them to not succeed. You know, so it's not like they would have to worry about having a post zombie era of like having to like rehabilitate like a zombie film into like a post zombie apocalyptic era. But I think that like if they are insistent of making a film, I think that they should just completely scrap like this, make this its own thing. Like just it completely disregard everything in Brad Pitt's film because I mean honestly, I don't think you'll find a single person today, even people who like the film, who are like just devout loyalists to World War Z. Like I don't think anyone's going to be in a fucking uproar or a fucking riot if Brad Pitt and his nameless children who I mean matter of fact, I challenge anyone out there to name the actors or the characters names of his kids and his wife. You can't fucking do it. Or even the random kid who was a survivor whose dad got turned into a zombie. Name what his name is or the actors. Exactly, you can't. So it's not like anyone has any type of sentimental attachment or like any type of nostalgic connection to these characters. So you can just really just completely start from scratch. I mean, it's been long enough that most people, even people who saw the film, probably don't even remember what the fuck happened in it. And so, like, you have a chance of starting from scratch. And I think that that's what they should do. They should just make a new story from scratch, make it its own thing. And really, I think if they're going to really want to make a World War Z, like, story, I think adapting the source material has a lot, like, you can do a lot with that. Like, I think it would be interesting to explore different perspectives of the zombie apocalypse because like we always see like the survivor aspect of like either survivors early in the apocalypse or midway in the apocalypse or even later in the apocalypse. Like as far as like having like a almost like a documentary style of like compiling like information of different people's experiences like kind of like making like a documentary of like the post-apocalyptic zombie world, like how does the world function, what is the political structure, what is like the new post-apocalyptic society look like. You rarely get that. I mean, like it's touched on in different types of mediums, but like that's not really the centerpiece. Like it's just kind of like there as like a supporting piece. So I think it'd be interesting, like to just make this a completely different type of film where it is not action. You don't need to cram it full of A-list actors and have all these cameos, and you don't need to have Brad Pitt show up again or Leonardo DiCaprio or anyone like that. Like you can just have this be like an anthology. Like I really think when I really kind of think about it, I think that World War Z, if you're adapting from the source material, it is far better complemented by an anthology TV series. I think that really it's better as a TV series. Like that way you can focus on a different character or a different group of people each episode. And you can have an anthology series. Like and you can have it across the world. You get people from Portugal, Italy, China, America. And it's just like it follows like different aspects, the different like people and their different aspects of the apocalypse or perspectives. I think that'd be pretty cool. I think that'd be a different take. And I think also people would like that because I think that, like, one of the reasons, I mean, yeah, it was like commercially successful, but I mean, I don't think you'll find anyone who says that World War Z, the original one, had a solid plot or even like a good script. Like, I don't think anyone's going to try to argue that World War Z was a very highly well thought out script or it had like any type of interesting concepts that it was considering. It was just pretty much a mindless action pilot for Brad Pitt that had zombies. And it just had World War Z. Like it had nothing to do with the source material, nothing to do with the novel. It was just a generic gunning, shooting, military, save my family, zombie film. So I don't think anyone's gonna like argue that the first film was fucking high art or peak cinema by any means. So I mean, I think that that's what kind of gives you the ability. Like, I think that's what makes this kind of interesting. Is like you can really go any way with it. And I think that the best way, like if they're gonna insist on doing a film, which they probably will be, I think that maybe, I mean, I think an anthology as a film might not work, but it could. I mean, I don't think that's impossible. Like, you could have like an anthology film, or you could have like a collection of films, or like many, or you could even have like short films where each one focuses on like a different person, different group, different society, different governments. You like learn like how like a new settlement or like a settlement in, Istanbul is different from like a settlement in like, South Africa, or like how one is like different from like America, like what remains of America. You can do a lot with that. So I think that like if it's an anthology series, it should be like a TV show. But like I don't know, like I think if you do it as a film, I could see you doing it almost like how Dawn of the Dead, not the original, but the one that came out. I believe Zack Snyder directed. I believe so. The one that came out in '04, '05. And I think if you take the concept that was in the DVD specials, so if they're on YouTube, actually, there's several different videos that have it. I think if you did a movie like that, that would be kind of cool. Like, you have a different perspective. Like, it's not from the perspective of like survivors, but it's like an actual like newsreel. Like, you have it like portrayed from like a news anchor point of view, where like they're like reporting pretty much like Dawn of the Dead, like the specials now, where like you have like an anchor who's like reporting the news, covering the live coverage, like learning about the apocalypse, kind of like gradually realizing like the full severity and like just how fucked the entire situation is. Like, I think that'd be kind of cool. Like, I think it would be more interesting to explore like a documentary, kind of like not um like a what do you call, like an interview style, but like kind of like a more like personal take to the apocalypse. Because so many times, like we see, like you get like a group of people, and you have like your main character, like a Rick or a Lee or or a Joel or an Ellie. But like as far as like really focusing on like a person and like just their life, just like their experience, and like focusing and following that, I think that'd be kind of cool. So if they do like want to make this a TV show, I think that there's a lot more potential. Like, I really think that World War Z, if you're just looking at purely from the source material, there's a lot more to work with a TV show or an anthology series and a movie. But like, of course, I mean, with any studio, they want to make movies and they want to make blockbuster movies, and also the fact that the first one made like $500 million, they're gonna want to try to replicate that. They're gonna look at what they did in that film, and they're gonna take. I mean, there isn't even really a good lesson I could say from that one, but they're gonna try to like replicate that because, well, I mean, if it makes $500 million, I mean, why would you not try to replicate it? So I think that they're probably going to try to just do like another type of version of Brad Pitt's film where it's just an action gunner with like, a new A-list celebrity, or they're going to try to get Brad Pitt back, which honestly, I don't know. I just don't know if Brad Pitt would even want to come back for World War Z film, because like as far as I'm aware, I might be wrong about this, but I've not heard Brad Pitt say pretty much anything about this film. Like, some actors, they'll talk about films that came out 15, 10, 8 years ago, and they'll talk about like how they really want to go back to that universe. They want to go back to playing that character. They're excited to go back to that franchise. I've really never heard Brad Pitt talk about, like, I've heard him say in passing at like an event or a press conference that like he'd be open to returning or he'd hope to return. But I've never really seen him just like confirm he would really want to come back for a World War Z sequel. And I think it's just because A, his schedule is just so crazy. I don't think he even have the time. And B, I think he just doesn't really have that type of interest in World War Z. And also, consider that him and the original director didn't get along. That's a factor too. So I think that Brad Pitt probably wouldn't even want to come back for a second film. So I think that's not a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily that Brad Pitt, if you can't get him back, because honestly, you can do a lot more without him. Like I don't obviously Brad Pitt, he's not like a Joel or a Lee Everett where like he's like central to this story. Like you can do a lot where it's not around Brad Pitt, where you have like a whole new different characters, you have all different characters. I mean, like, and also kind of like taking a page from Dawn of the Dead again. I think it would be kind of cool to have like a found footage type of style World War Z type film, kind of like Dawn of the Dead, the Andy specials, where like they it's like a person like documenting their experiences in the apocalypse. You could do a lot with that. Like you could have like a person's video log of like them documenting the apocalypse as it goes on. Like you could like see like how over time it like starts to affect their mental state, like the gradual descent into madness, or like how they become like very changed as people. And I think also like I think it'd be cool if it was done right. I think it'd be kind of cool to have like from a kid's perspective. Like, yeah, I mean, I know that like kids in apocalyptic films, like kids in general in films, can be pretty annoying. But like, I think if it's done correctly, I think it'd be kind of cool of like if somehow like a kid is like on their own or isolated to like in a bunker somewhere, and like they're having to like survive on their own, and they're like having to like constantly like give updates, or like they're like pretty much like making a vlog to like kind of like keep themselves like kind of comforted of like trying to like hope that like they can somehow be found or they can be rescued. Like I think that'd be kind of cool, like to have like different types of perspectives. And I think like with World War Z, I'm like like The Walking Dead or The Last of Us or any other type of Walking Dead or any type of like zombie type franchise. I think World War Z lends itself to a lot more different types of unconventional type of stories, which are I think would pretty be interesting. Because the thing with with zombie apocalypse movies and stories in general is just like they're very played out because like the premise is simple, and like most follow the same structure of like survivors. They are inexperienced, they don't know how the apocalypse works, they find like a safe house, they find like some type of shelter, makeshift shelter that falls apart. They lose some people over time, they become more experienced with the apocalypse, and then they pretty much are like adept to the apocalypse. So most zombie films kind of follow the same story beats. And I think with World War Z, like if you adapt it correctly, you can do a lot more of it, which I would be up for. And I think also people would be a lot more interested in like unconventional type of zombie films. Cause yeah, I mean, yeah, people like the first film enough to where it grossed $1 billion, but or $500 million, but think you could probably I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I think that that's kind of the tricky thing is I don't know if today you could probably gross that much. Even if you brought Brad Pitt back, I don't even know if you could gross that much today. Like, because really just the zombie genre in general has just like lost so much value and lost so much star power. I think you'd really have to work for it. But then again, I don't know because I mean, Sinners came out, and that's a vampire film, and made pretty good money. Made like $300 million at the box office. So it could be possible that you could still make a decent amount of money off of this film. But I think that to have the expectations that this is going to somehow be as like successful as the first one financially with like the same type of plot points and story beats, I just think this really not possible. But like I think that I would be interested in like what they would do because when I've read a little bit of it, I haven't read all of the novel, but it's interesting. Like there, I think that if you have like either from like a journalist perspective, you even have it from like a politician's perspective. Like you could even have it from like what is like a new politician in the post-apocalyptic world like. How does like what is the role and the purpose and the function of like like a politician in a post apocalyptic society? What is the governance? What is the laws? What are the amendments? Like there's so much that you could go into. And that's what I really like when I like learn more about World War Z. Is like when I first saw the film, I was like, "Oh, this is like a cool action film." And then I like learned about the source material, and I was like, "God damn, we actually got fucking deprived of some really good fucking content that could have been in the first one." And honestly, I feel like if they had adapted the original like material correctly. And you don't even, I mean, because you really don't need Brad Pitt for this. You could just like get rid of him completely. So like as far as like worrying about whether he would want to do it or if he would be involved, you could just get rid of him. You don't need him. Like I think if they adapted the source material, they probably could have had a franchise going. I think we would have had at least a few films at this point in the World War Z franchise. Um, but then again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe people would have like not taken to it as much as they did with like just the traditional, gunning zombie film. But I think people would like pretty much like more of a personal narrative, just like they would like a regular apocalyptic story. But yeah, so I'll be curious to see what they do. I mean, because like World War Z, it is one of those things that like a most people have either forgotten about it. Two, the people that do remember it probably don't really care about it, and then three, the people who even know about the source material probably don't. I mean, they like the book probably, but like I've never met someone who is like an avid fan of the World War Z book. So like I think that like you can do a lot with a sequel, and I think that not even a sequel, but I think just like a second film. Like I look at this as pretty much a second try at doing a proper adaptation of the World War Z source material. I think that this is kind of a nice reset for Paramount, where they can like just start from scratch, do their own thing, get rid of Brad Pitt, get rid of all the stuff from the first film, just make this as entirely new canon and go from there. Like I think that that would be the best move for them to do. But with that said, not much else for me to say really. And so I think I'm a call it a day here, and I will see you good people later.